Fred. On this episode, it's a special one. I teach computer science principles, AP course in our high school, and I had my students create a podcast episode about their thoughts on the impact of the coronavirus in society and also how computer science can help solve this problem of the coronavirus. So check it out, enjoy, and I'll see you later.
Hi everyone, so my name is Yumi and today I'm going to be talking about my thoughts on computer science and technology and its current and future role in world events like the COVID-19 pandemic. So I think that this pandemic would have been a lot worse if we didn't have the technology we had today. And by this, I mean it in two ways, stopping the virus and helping us continue with our daily lives during quarantine. There are many factors when trying to make a cure, one of them being tracking down the cause of the illness. Using the technology we have today, scientists have thought of many possible theories for where the virus came from. For example, to do so, one way they have tracked down traces for this virus is through social media, and in one famous theory, the bats. Although this is obviously not a confirmed cause, there is high speculation that the coronavirus spread by people eating bats. By tracking down data through social media, scientists can see when or where these events occurred, which can help them gain a better understanding of the situation. And though the list of possible theories will become longer as time goes by, it can also be narrowed down by using our technological resources. Also, by using data from current patients, scientists can see how the symptoms match with those of other illnesses as well. From there, it can be a step forward for people to find the cure for the virus, and this can be seen already in today's world. Through these symptoms, people have been given medicine for other illnesses such as malaria, which have been effective so far. Likewise, computer science can also predict the spread of the coronavirus by mapping out the current spread. This can help tremendously in the efforts of preventing more spreading around the globe. For example, in areas where it will be predicted to be the most costly, temporary hospitals can be set up to prepare. In order to prepare for the worst-case scenario, it can also help determine how much to stock up on. This is important because hospitals can stock up on medical supplies and make sure that they have enough supplies to take care of incoming patients, while people can stock up on other things like medicine, food, and other necessities for the duration of the time the computer predicts the quarantine to be. And with the technology we have today, many people can still go on with their daily lives despite being quarantined. For example, many companies such as Amazon and Google have let people work from home. This applies to students as well. Though students can't actually go to school, there are online resources such as Zoom, email, and in our school's case, CavNet, to allow students to continue learning outside of the classroom. But obviously, it's not the same as a regular day of going to school or going to work. With a decrease of social contact and prevention going outside, people are feeling a mental strain. Not only this, but there are also other limitations. For example, not everyone can do remote working or learning for several reasons. There are some jobs that you just can't do virtually, such as cooking or driving. And not all families and schools have the resources at home to fulfill online tasks. Perhaps in the future, this can be changed. In the future, cooks may be able to still cook for others during quarantine by air delivery, similar to what Amazon has kind of started already. We can use technology and computer science to make sure that the delivery reaches each house safe. And this is just a quick thought. You know how in a movie like Avengers, the characters all have meetings through holograms? It is quite possible that that may become a reality for us in the near future. In future events like the one we're living in today, everyone might be participating in meetings or class holographically, which may feel almost completely the same as just going to school. And that is the end of my podcast. Thank you for listening.
The COVID-19 pandemic currently presiding over our outside lives originated in the Wuhan province of China from human consumption of bats. In its early spread, the Chinese government denied allegations of cover-ups, but as the virus exceeded the country, it was revealed that they used their internet restrictions to block outgoing information about the situation, and arrested Dr. Li Wenliang, one of the doctors who attempted to notify reporters about the disease spread. This is an old argument conducted across the world, asking how much power a country's government should have over internet access and information restriction. The Chinese government's power allows them to effectively cut down on fake news and fear-mongering, but also allows for a bottleneck of legitimate but dirtier information. On the flip side, the United States, due to its competitive market and non-government controlled media for the most part, allows information to flow, correct or not. This means people can better exchange opinions and facts, but also permits misinformation to spread. However, data can still easily be manipulated to be technically correct, but misleading and deceiving to the layman. As we progress through this pandemic, many online social services have opened their doors and removed limits on the amount of users that can congregate on servers. This has allowed schools and businesses to continue in an offbeat fashion, but these companies and many others who are suddenly experiencing massive user logon have felt the stress put on their systems as they try to deal with the massive amount of people logging on out of boredom from home. Many companies had already transitioned to a mostly online style of work, using a laptop and server to be able to access files from anywhere. Companies that have not must either adapt or shut down temporarily. Schools have used live or recorded video lessons and their respective sites to distribute work, but this is in many cases not a proper substitute for lesson plans. However, it is much easier for students to supplement themselves with outside resources while covering material, and asynchronous classes let them move at their own pace and get help from peers. The creation and rise of consumer 3D printers has allowed hobbyists and DIYers to create their own parts from scratch for projects. During this pandemic, makers, as they're sometimes called, designed a simple face shield that can be printed and assembled at home, then used or donated to organizations in need. The mask is a printed headband and lower cover that snaps together with a laminating foil and slips over the ears of the user. The mask is not medical grade, but provides some protection in environments that need to be sterile, such as hospitals and food banks. The mask was verified by the Czech Ministry of Health and has been distributed online to makers worldwide. Information on this can be found at opshieldsup.org. This is an opportunity that did not exist 20 years ago, and signals a massive step forward in that not only does this technology exist, but it can be acquired relatively cheaply and without restriction. Possibly the most professional and most important usage of computer science and technology in this situation is the tracking and processing of data. It is essential to have facts and reliable points to be able to monitor situations and predict the spread of disease before it happens. Institutions around the globe can trade information and data immediately, and progress can be made quickly using shared resources and knowledge. The limitation to this is that the system is only as good as it's allowed to be. If it is not given correct or full information, it may give readings that result in a misdistribution of resources or incorrect production. This ties into my first point, that control of information can lead to misleading numbers and bad data, among other things. However, the processing power and pattern recognition that computers today contain enables researchers to study the composition of a disease and its environmental reactions. Online databases have full reports on COVID-19 cases, including authored segments, molecular makeup, and genetic patterns. Using this, researchers can trade insight and knowledge, allowing them to better understand and defeat the disease in the long run.
Hello everyone, it's Savannah Rosenzweig back at it with another podcast. I hope y'all are having a fine day in quarantine. Things have really escalated. COVID-19 has taken the lives of more than 3,000 people. It has spread so fast with more than 70 countries affected. We just keep hearing more and more about infections. The World Health Organization put out an estimate of just how deadly the coronavirus is. Headlines that say it's killing 3.4% of people who get it worldwide. Reporting that 70% of the world's population will get the coronavirus. Yet, in the face of all the worry and panic, computer scientists tracking the deadly coronavirus epidemic have been working diligently to predict the virus's next moves. One computer science team at Northeastern University has developed a tool called EpiRisk, which, according to the team, estimates the probability that an infected individual will spread the virus to other areas of the world through travel. Although I thought, well, no one is traveling right now, right? I mean, there's an outbreak that's causing people to die. But TikTok proves me wrong. I have seen countless videos of people buying cheaper plane tickets to go on their spring break. I am so glad this team invented EpiRisk. EpiRisk is focused on all data coming from China and nearby countries. That is including social media and the news. Initially, EpiRisk was just being used to monitor China and the spread of the virus in China itself. It has now moved worldwide. First, the team models the epidemic to achieve situational awareness, particularly outside of the country it's studying. Because the team knows how many people are traveling from regions that have been hit by the coronavirus, they can reason the size of the epidemic elsewhere from the cases of COVID-19 detected internationally. They can make these predictions ahead of other systems because those systems often rely on official confirmation of the virus. Then they have all these models to look at how interventions like travel restrictions affect the transmission of the disease. For example, the travel ban in Italy. Airports are shut down, train stations are shut down. Even our schools are closed. EpiRisk is trying to understand the likelihood that these measures can contain the epidemic. You can go on the EpiRisk website right now, actually. I have it pulled up, and it will give you a quick estimate of the probability of exporting individuals with the virus from sites affected by a disease outbreak to other areas in the world just through airlines. You can explore the effects of potential restrictions applied to airline traffic. You can inspect the risk and the probability distribution of imported cases for single locations. Naturally, I clicked on the US, and it pops up with hundreds of yellow lines to other countries, showing that how many other people are being affected just from the people in the US with the coronavirus traveling. You can also do this with just cities. I highly recommend you check this out. Now, this virus is really bad. I'm only 18, but this is the worst illness I have ever seen. I have never been sent home for months at a time just because of an illness. Ever. It makes me think of how computer science will be in the future. Since coronavirus, thousands of computer scientists have come together to create things to show the spread of the virus and all of the potential dangers. I asked my mom what it was like for her growing up, and let's just say she was born the same year that there was the first official use of internet. Things have changed since then. Things have already developed so quickly in the world of computer science, and I'm actually excited to see what comes next, which is kind of weird. I know I'm like a conspiracy theorist, but who knows? Maybe in a few years, computers are going to take all of our jobs and do everything for us. I'm joking, I think. I don't know. Anyways, There are so many computer scientists out there working hard to keep us safe. Hopefully, people start to realize their impact of traveling during this time. I hope that everyone comes across this EpiRisk website and takes a look at it and how them traveling can affect other people around the world. Computer science has truly made an impact on us, especially right now. Although I may not see you guys for a while, I hope you all stay safe and healthy. And remember, just because next week is spring break, that doesn't mean you should head to Miami and party. Thank you all for listening.
For my podcast, I am going to talk about this one tool called EpiRisk that was made by a computer scientist named Alessandro Vespignani. And so from the website of EpiRisk that you can interact with, they describe it as a computational platform designed to allow a quick estimate of the probability of exporting infected individuals from sites affected by a disease outbreak to other areas in the world through the airline transportation network and the daily commuting patterns. It also lets the user explore the effects of potential restrictions applied to airline traffic and commuting flows. But that's, long, so I would more describe it as this tool, EpiRisk, is something that estimates the probability that individuals, in this case infected with coronavirus, can spread the disease to other places in the world via travel. And so it also kind of tracks the effectiveness of travel bans, which was something that was some of the first things the U.S. did in response to the pandemic. So, like I said, it's called EpiRisk, and it uses all the data sources that it can. And one of the main things that it was using is surveillance data from China and nearby countries, and as well as social media and news sources. And the first thing that they did was model the epidemic for awareness, like outside of China, because this article that I'm using with the interview of this guy who made this tool is from February, so more like when it was not yet this bad in the United States. But anyways, and then their team also knew how many people were traveling from China and specifically places that were hard hit by the virus. And so since they knew how many people were traveling to and from those regions, they could infer the size of the virus other places internationally. And so that basically allows them to make predictions ahead of on-the-ground reporting systems, since this is a model versus on-the-ground reporting systems needs official confirmation usually. And then how it measured travel bans was they concluded that when the travel ban was issued in China, it was too late, so it didn't have a lot of effect. But according to this computational model, the ban that the United States initially affected on travel did have a big effect on reducing the number of imported cases from infected countries. And then once I found this information, I looked up more about computational disease modeling as a job, since that's what Alessandro Vespignani called himself in this. So, and he was also talking about how during that job there's times of more calm and peace when there's no emergencies, and so they can do more research on better ways to get more research and things like that. And then there's other times like now that they call a wartime because it's an emergency and something that they have to work with, like limited data that's always changing, and also a lot of assumptions because it's something that's new. So like for example, you could think you know something one day, but then learn something new the next day, and they have to revamp their model based on new information. And I also thought it was interesting that a quote from him is, the fighters of the battle are really doctors, nurses, and public health people in the field. They're the ones risking their lives. What we do as computer scientists and computational epidemiologists is provide them with intelligence to anticipate the move of the enemy. So they're more working behind the scenes and providing that information to and down the line to people who have hands-on jobs of doctors who are working to treat people with the illness. And then the way that they work with other scientists, the people working with EpiRisk, is they're all collaborating because there's different fields and networks of expertise. So they do conference calls with other teams doing research, even global conference calls. So, and he said that sometimes there's like at least 80 and sometimes 100 teams on the calls. And so there's like I said, there's different types of expertise. So that includes mobility modeling, forecasting, nowcasting, long-term projection, which is kind of what FERISC is, long-term projection, as well as phylogenetic analysis. And phylogenetic analysis is the study of evolutionary relationships among biological entities. So, that includes this whole virus and stuff. And speaking of biological entities, the reason I picked this as my topic is because I saw it and it kind of reminds me of this lab we did in bio, a case study about how an outbreak of a virus and how they had to track it. They figured out the rate of infection based on like the first person who got it on a flight, and then other people who ended up getting it from the flight, and then that was like kind of the base 2 people, and then how they spread it once they got back home. And it just reminded me of that, but I'm thinking more in an efficient way because they have access as a computer science, more access to lots of different types of data and a computer doing the modeling for you rather than because in this case study they have to call up people and ask them questions themselves. But things like this have more depth and breadth across by working with other teams and having a computer model to do that part of the work for you.
Hi, guys. So, this is my podcast on the COVID-19 pandemic and how computer science and technology play a current and future role in events like this. So, in the times of this new epidemic that is shocking the world, computer science and technology are helping to create ways to fight the virus physically, but also the problems that come with this epidemic. One example is the fact that most people across the world are forced to stay at home in quarantine. This creates the burden of many workers not being able to go to work at their respected jobs, and thus the workforce garners a big hole and drops in productivity. Though there is a big change of not being able to go into work, to combat this, many tech companies and mobile operators are giving Wi-Fi and alternative online options to make working from home easier, and this turns out to be the apparent alternative option. AT&T provides unlimited WebEx, which are video conferencing services which makes working and learning from home much easier, and these services are free for 90 days. T-Mobile, doing a similar service, gives 20 gigabytes for no charge. Verizon, to help the workforce, is prioritizing its educators and healthcare consumers. This creates an easier way to continue working without being completely cut out from the outside world. Also, there's the problem of a lot of the COVID-19 information being misinterpreted, so that causes many people to freak out. And also, this comes from a lot of misinformation given to the general public. So, companies like Cisco and AT&T made websites to keep people out of the dark about the new unfamiliar virus. These websites serve as resource and information websites about how to prevent, but also a more accurate assessment of how many cases have occurred. But even the news can now have updates about the virus almost instantly because they can get an outlook of the topic from multiple sources. So these can let the public be aware of the news from the safety of their home. Bioscience is also playing a major part in the course to find the cure. Companies in China are building upon previous vaccines from other viruses like Ebola and changing them to create samples that could eventually cure the corona. As well as using biomedicine, they are also using AI or artificial intelligence to speed up the process. The company Shenzhen Technology uses the AI to create accuracy in the calculations to display and show a 3D model of the virus. This also can show how the virus reacts inside the body and how the body reacts to the said virus. After finding the cause and effects of the virus, they can then work on a way to create the cure. Already, they have begun scheduling the beginning of testing cures. With the advancements in technology and science, they have been able to jumpstart the path to finding cures and also have been able to analyze the virus more accurately than just by human hands. I think that the computer science and technology we have has left the world to tools to keep the world running in times of crisis. For example, even our school was easily able to switch everything online so that school and courses could still go on. Daily check-ins and easy contact with teachers keep students connected and have an easier time learning. But also the fact that students can still be in contact with their friends and this creates a similar feeling to being in the classroom. Also, I think that since tech was already incorporated in the school curriculum, I think we had a fairly easy transition. Work and businesses can still stay in contact with their workers by video conferencing and email, and also hold online meetings if need be. This makes it so that at-home quarantine is not so much a terror as many people think it is. I think it also keeps many from not freaking out because you can stay educated and be aware about the news and updates surrounding the virus, but also still keep a regular schedule of work and daily life of what happened before the virus outbreak. So in all, technology plays a big part in how all world events are playing out right now, and definitely makes some of the outcomes less terrible. And with the technology, I think that it keeps the world somewhat centered, because for the most part, your daily life can still go on. I also think that this is the first time something like this has happened on such a widespread scale. It will be a way for everyone to learn from this event, and if in the future happens, again we can be more suitably prepared. But already, people and technology are making changes to make life easier and more manageable, so I think that it will help prevent things like this outbreak to happen again, because at the moment, the cause of spread is because of ignorance and also not being prepared for this type of thing. So I think definitely in the future, we will be better prepared to prevent the epidemic, and if an epidemic were to get this bad again. Thanks, guys. That was my podcast. Hope you enjoyed. Bye.
Hey, so some things that can help with the pandemic from computer science is, first off, some pros. Pros, computer science allows a lot of people to work home from their jobs. Like even at our school, our teachers are using Zoom, a program made by computer science, to allow us to meet with our students and hold classes. Like for me, my science teacher, Doctora, every Tuesday and Thursday we have a little Spanish class from 11 to 12, and it's basically like being in a real class. You can see everyone's faces. The teachers can mute people. You can like raise your hand. It's great. Another great thing computer science has brought is it'll probably be easier to find a vaccine through machine learning, because you can obviously do many simulations that would take days and weeks. with only a couple of hours with machine learning. So vaccine and getting the vaccine should be easier with computer science. Another pro of computer science is the amount of job opportunities it opens during these times, because especially now during this pandemic, we're all inside. There's not too much collaboration in real life anymore, except for the essentials. The people that have to be out there working. So us people at home can be working at our computers. Another job at the computers is computer science, and computer science it's fairly tapped into currently, but it can definitely exponentially grow in the future because there will always be jobs open for computer science. There are software developers, computer network architectures, web developers, security developers, analysts, people that make algorithms. There's a whole bunch of stuff really, and all of computer science can basically be self-taught at home with classes online, like on YouTube or other places like Udemy, which is a coding course as well. So those are basically most of the pros of computer science, and some cons. Computer science right now isn't perfect. Obviously, a lot of classes, like all the colleges are shut down. Even at our own school, our classes won't be a complete replica of what they were, and a lot of classes will be altered to maybe our benefit or disbenefit. Either way, we're not getting the full experience of the education, and same with millions of other students in America and all across the world. Another con of computer science during this time is, since we're all being quarantined and stuff, we'll be probably more likely to stay at our computers, being unhealthier, less, we get our daily exercise and even stretching, stuff like that. So yeah, those are basically all the pros and cons I've found over these past week and a half ish, almost 2 weeks now, of having online classes in computer science. So yeah, those are the ends of the pros and cons.
Hi, I'm Malik Goida, and today I'm going to be talking about the recent coronavirus outbreak and how technology is being used right now. I think that this outbreak kind of came out of nowhere, so nobody was able to prepare for this big switch to online school. I think if people were more prepared and took this more seriously, then this would have gone a lot smoother and it would have been a lot easier. Nonetheless, there are many apps that have helped schools and companies around the world make this transition easier, like Zoom, which allows you to have a classroom video chat. I think this sort of thing will be easy to get used to for teachers and students and workers because of how user-friendly and easy it is to use technology. Staying at home and taking online classes is great, but like I said earlier, it's thrown our original lives and schedules out of order. Many students are not getting the adequate amount of education that you might get from a normal school. This could also be because of this self-quarantine thing. That was so sudden, but who knows? Also, this outbreak has caused a massive spike in internet usage. We have to make sure that we limit our amount of data usage outside of online school to make sure we don't get used to using technology so much. Things like video games and social media should be limited so you don't get used to using them so often. All in all, this virus was very unexpected, and I think if the world was more prepared, then the switch to online school and work would be a lot smoother and more things could be figured out, like limiting data usage. That's all. Thank you for listening.
Computer science is doing great combating the coronavirus, but it's not at its full potential. All around the world, we've been hearing about how computer science is helping us battle COVID-19. It tracks and predicts the spread of the coronavirus and even helps us model the infectiousness of the disease in the body. This modeling enables us to test different treatments in order to find cures. According to Spectrum IEEE.org, using the world's fastest supercomputer, 2 researchers ran detailed simulations of interactions between the coronavirus and 9,000 different compounds that could potentially be repurposed as COVID-19 drugs. Running this molecular dynamics sequence on standard computers might take a month, but on Oak Ridge National Laboratory's Summit supercomputer, the computation took a day. While this initially seems pretty fast, it's not fast enough. 9,000 compounds is actually not many when you think about all of the millions of different compounds atoms can make. These days add up to months, and it will take a whole year or more until we have a vaccine for the coronavirus. In the interim, that's a lot of deaths that add up. Moreover, there are multiple groups racing to find the cure for coronavirus. While there is collaboration within research institutes, globally we are not sharing information that would be vital for expediting the production of a coronavirus cure. So even though our supercomputers have been able to process this big data much faster than a few years ago, there is always room for improvement so we can save as many lives as possible. Hopefully, with new inventions to improve the speed of supercomputers, we may be able to simulate the interactions of thousands of different compounds in seconds rather than days. I think it ultimately comes down to the potential of us, as human beings, to set aside differences and selfishness in order to excel towards the goal of advancing the human race and the capabilities of the ways in which we care for one another, whether it be medically, financially, or environmentally. Bill Gates predicted in 2015 that there would be another pandemic following Ebola. In his TED Talk, he said, "We've actually invested very little in a system to stop an epidemic. We are not ready for the next epidemic." Gates has been proven right in these past few months, as the number of deaths due to coronavirus in the US has doubled in just 4 days. So it's not just that we need to be innovating more in the field of computer science to help us with preventing such disasters as these. We also need people to understand the importance of and invest in the field of computer science. Processing big data is what is helping solve a whole range of global issues, and it's where philanthropists should be investing their money. On the technology side of battling coronavirus, there have been shortages of ventilators and equipment for medical facilities. Ventilators are having to be shared, which makes them less effective, and PPEs are being reused, even though they aren't supposed to be. With more innovations in computer science, we would be able to find ways of making more advanced ventilators that can be shared and produced faster. We would also have the potential to invest in machines that could manufacture PPEs at a much faster rate than volunteers putting them together by hand. Ultimately, it comes down to mankind's desire to be driven, compassionate, philanthropic, and collaborative. When coronavirus has run its course, we can't forget Bill Gates' words in 2015, because the coronavirus is not going to be the last pandemic, and it probably won't be the worst pandemic. Not unless we learn our lesson now and progress together in making the world a healthier and smarter place. Thank you.
Computer science has played and continues to play a critical role in helping research, investigate, and prevent the spread of the coronavirus, and will play an increasingly larger role in future global and local pandemics. AI tools can help in many different ways. They are being used to predict the spread of the coronavirus, map its genetic evolution as it transmits from human to human, speed up diagnosis and the development of potential treatments, while also helping policymakers cope with related issues, such as the impact on transport, food supplies, and travel. But in all these cases, AI is only effective if it has sufficient examples to learn from. As COVID-19 has taken the world into uncharted territory, the deep learning systems, which computers use to acquire new capabilities, don't necessarily have the data they need to produce useful outputs. AI-based mathematical models are playing an important role in helping policymakers understand how COVID-19 is spreading and when the rate of infections is set to peak. By drawing on data from the field, such as the number of deaths, AI models can help to detect how many infections are in the dark. Infections in the dark are undetected cases that are still infectious. That data can then be used to inform the establishment of quarantine zones and other social distancing measures. Also, AI-based diagnostics that are being applied to similar areas can quickly be repurposed for diagnosing COVID-19 infections. Behold.ai, which has an algorithm for automatically detecting both lung cancer and collapsed lungs from X-rays, reported on Monday that the algorithm can quickly identify chest X-rays from COVID-19 patients as abnormal. This could potentially speed up diagnosis and ensure resources are allocated properly. AI can also be used to help identify individuals who might be unknowingly infected by COVID-19. Chinese tech company Baidu says its new AI-enabled infrared sensor system can monitor the temperature of people in the proximity and quickly determine whether they may have a fever, one of the symptoms of the coronavirus. In a March 11th article in the MIT Technology Review, Baidu said the technology is being used in Beijing's Qinghai railway station to identify passengers who are potentially infected, where it can examine up to 200 people in 1 minute without disrupting passenger flow. A report from the World Health Organization on how China has responded to the coronavirus says the country has also used big data and AI to strengthen contact tracing and the management of priority populations. DeepMind, the London-based AI specialist owned by Google's parent company Alphabet, believes its neural networks can speed up the often laborious process of solving the structures of viral proteins. It has developed 2 methods for training neural networks to predict the properties of a protein from its genetic sequence. We hope to contribute to the scientific effort by releasing structure predictions of several understudied proteins associated with SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19, the company said. These can help researchers to build understanding of how the virus functions and can be used in drug discovery. The pandemic has also led to enterprise software company Salesforce expanding into life sciences, in a study demonstrating that AI models can learn the language of biology, just as they can do speech and image recognition. The idea is that the AI system will then be able to design proteins, or identify unknown proteins, that have specific properties which could be used to treat COVID-19. Salesforce fed the amino acid sequences of proteins and their associated metadata into its ProGen AI system. The system takes each training sample and formulates a game in which it tries to predict the next amino acid in a sequence. Another way technology has helped with the coronavirus is helping to generate and synthesize numbers of infected people and percentages. By mid-January, one research group had circulated an analysis listing the top 15 cities at risk of the virus spreading, based on airplane flights and travel data. Another team announced that it had used the number of infected people detected outside China to help figure out what might really be going on in Wuhan City. Those researchers estimated that there were actually more than 1,700 cases at the time, though the official count of confirmed cases was only 41. Another study was conducted by Rosalind Ego, an infectious disease modeler at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. She and her colleagues recently took the best available information about transmission and looked at how feasible it would be to control the virus by isolating sick people and tracking down every person they'd had contact with. She says that you would need to trace at least 80% of contacts to have an 80% chance of containing an outbreak that started with 20 cases within 3 months, which is feasible in some places and completely impossible in others. Her group also looked at the utility of screening airport travelers to detect infected people. One simulation showed that if 100 infected travelers began a journey on a 12-hour flight, about half would not be detected by inbound or outbound traveler screening that was based on symptoms. Studies like these can help public health officials decide where to concentrate their time, energy, and money. And the development made in computer science and technology, especially artificial intelligence, have revolutionized how pandemics are handled, now and in the future.
Computer science and technology are advancing many jobs and aspects of our lives. In fact, they are one of the main weapons against the COVID-19 outbreak, which is devastating communities and economies. Today, we'll skim the surface of how computer science and technology are seeking to combat COVID-19. And from this, we'll learn the important role they play in the current pandemic. We can extrapolate from this and consider how future world events will be affected by computer science and technology. 4 main ways AI tools can help are predicting how the virus will spread, charting its evolution as it mutates, accelerating diagnosis,
developing potential treatments, and predicting the virus's impact on the world, such as on food supplies, to aid policymakers. AI-based mathematical models help inform policymakers on the spread of COVID-19 and when infections will likely peak, so policymakers can make informed decisions on measures such as creating quarantine zones. Because people infected with the virus SARS-CoV-2, which causes the disease COVID-19, may not even know it, it's important to have accessible and quick testing. Computer science is playing a large role in current and potential testing. A new AI-enabled infrared sensor system created by the Chinese company Baidu checks the temperatures of those within the vicinity, quickly ascertaining if they have a fever. There are many similar AI-driven or robotic temperature takers. To improve its contact tracing and management of priority populations, China has also used AI and big data. Many companies have developed or are developing quick COVID-19 testing using AI, such as Surgisphere, which announced on May 12th that its test is available for public use. To build the foundations for treatment and a vaccine, AI tools are being used to understand the novel coronavirus's biology and chemistry. An AI-derived knowledge graph from the startup Benevolent AI has reportedly facilitated the discovery of a possible therapeutic. Through AI algorithms, in silico medicine is designing new molecules that could curb COVID-19's capacity to replicate in cells. DeepMind is attempting to use its neural networks to speed up the process of determining the structures of viral proteins. Overall, one important caveat of deep learning systems is that this is an unprecedented crisis and a new virus. While these systems can predict general behavior, they are more lacking when it comes to applying that to an unprecedented situation. Now, let's talk about the capabilities of robots in this pandemic. Robots can help with clinical care, logistics, and continuity of work. They can be used for disinfection, delivering medications and food, measuring vital signs, and assisting border controls, all while maintaining social distancing measures that limit the spread of the virus. Since COVID-19 can spread through touching contaminated surfaces, robot-controlled non-contact ultraviolet, UV, surface disinfection is being used. UV light devices have proved to be effective in decreasing contamination on hospital surfaces, and this eliminates the exposure risk that manual disinfection has. Disinfection robots could also be more cost-effective, fast, and efficient. In the same vein, robots could help in the collection, handling, and transferring of test swabs to speed up the process, reduce the risk of infection, and free up the staff for other tasks. Now that we know a little bit about what's happening, let's look at the big picture. In the future, AI could play a significant role in diagnosing patients, developing treatments and cures, and predicting the timeline and consequences of events, not just pandemics, but natural disasters such as earthquakes too. While some fear a robot takeover of jobs, as we've seen, this can be good for humans. When a person cleans a contaminated surface or swabs the mouth of an infected patient, they are putting themselves at risk. However, this risk is removed if a robot completes the task. Especially with regard to cleaning services, this could lead to more robot involvement in the workplace.
The coronavirus is very prevalent in society today, and its impact has pushed everyone into a quarantine and a lockdown. However, in these desperate times, artificial intelligence has played a massive role and has had a huge impact in keeping our hospitals and cities clean. Additionally, they have helped streamline the virus and keep its detrimental impact to a minimum. Through artificial intelligence and robots, we hopefully can understand these types of viruses and find methods to prevent this virus from killing others. There are multiple ways that AI has helped, but today I will cover 4 of these methods. Firstly, AI has helped identify, track, and forecast outbreaks. The better we can track the virus, the better we can fight it. By analyzing news reports, social media platforms, and government documents, AI has learned to detect an outbreak. There is a Canadian startup called Blue Dot who has been tracking the COVID-19 virus. Blue Dot's AI warned them of the threat of the coronavirus several days before the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention or the World Health Organization issued their public warnings. This shows 2 things about AI. 1, that AI is extremely efficient, and that 2, it is very reliable in dire cases. Additionally, Johns Hopkins University and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology have developed AI algorithms in order to create virtual maps of this virus. This has helped scientists as they are able to use these maps to detect the spread and demographic targeted by the virus. This can help them develop treatment processes to stop the virus from spreading. Another program that tries to detect the spread of the virus is EpiRisk. EpiRisk is a computational platform designed to allow a quick estimate of the probability of exporting infected individuals from sites affected by a disease outbreak. Basically, they are able to determine the spread of the coronavirus. Since this virus is airborne, by understanding how it spreads and how it attacks humans, we can prevent people from doing those types of activities that could stimulate a growth in the virus's production. Secondly, AI has and will help diagnose the virus. Artificial intelligence companies such as Infravision have launched a coronavirus AI solution that helps frontline healthcare workers detect and monitor the disease efficiently. Additionally, imaging departments in healthcare facilities are being taxed with the increased workload created by the virus. This solution improves diagnosis speeds. Since this virus has symptoms for the flu, and testing this virus is long, takes time, and is very inefficient, this is a big help. Because it is necessary to get tested for this virus in order to determine whether you have the virus, it is extremely helpful to increase the speed and amount of people tested per day. By diagnosing AI, we can enforce quarantine and prevent the spread of this virus. Additionally, AI's efficient system increases the rate of efficiency. This AI solution, according to Infravision, boasts 96% efficiency. Thirdly, robots sterilize, deliver food and supplies, and perform other tasks. Robots are not susceptible to the virus, so they are being deployed to complete many tasks such as cleaning, sterilizing, and delivering food and medicine to reduce the amount of human-to-human contact. Since this virus transfers between human contact, this is a great solution. UVD robots from the Blue Ocean Robotics use ultraviolet light to autonomously kill bacteria and viruses. In China, Purdue Technology deployed its robots that are typically used in the catering industry to more than 40 hospitals around the country. Additionally, these robots have released ultraviolet rays throughout hospitals. UVD Robots is a Danish company making robots that are able to disinfect patient rooms and operating theaters in hospitals. By releasing energy waves, such as ultraviolet rays, they emit enough energy to literally shred the DNA or RNA of any microorganisms in the way. This especially is a key part of virus structure and bacteria structure, as they are only made of RNA or DNA. Without it, they can't function. So taking out this DNA or RNA using machines is both efficient and a way to get rid of the virus. Lastly, robots have been used in the process of drug creation. Google's DeepMind division used its latest AI algorithms and its computing power to understand the proteins that might make up the virus and publish the findings to help others develop treatments against these proteins. Benevolent AI uses AI systems to build drugs that can fight the world's toughest diseases, and it's now helping support the efforts to treat the coronavirus, the first time the company focused its products on infectious diseases. Within weeks of the outbreak, it used its predictive capabilities to propose existing drug solutions that might be useful. This is extremely helpful, as it allows scientists to have an approach as to what they can use to solve the problems such as this virus. Overall, robots and artificial intelligence have reduced human workforce casualties by preventing human-to-human interaction. By posing new methods and treatment processes, these robots have prevented workers from retracting the virus. As technology continues, hopefully we continue to develop algorithms and robots to prevent any further spread of the virus. Additionally, it is up to us humans to create social distancing in order to prevent human-to-human spread of the coronavirus. This is Keisha from Quarantine signing off.
In a world of social distancing, a world where it isn't safe to step foot outdoors, a world where people live in isolation. Who is that? They're getting closer? It could only be nobody. Right now, we are in the middle of an insane pandemic, reaching all across the world. There's a malicious disease spreading, inching closer. Of course, it'd be evil with a vile name like Bud Light Lime. Oh, wait, no? Hold on. Corona? Sure? Anyways, of course it'd be evil with a vile name like Corona. COVID-19 has affected schools, businesses, hospitals, stores, and many other workplaces that will have and already have had an effect on everyone's life. This includes life in the virtual world. With many people following the rules of this social distancing, people are getting quite lonely. And what better way to get unlonely than to take a nice, long, refreshing sip of Sprite Cranberry? I mean, society's impossibly high standards, aka social media. With great media power comes great responsibility. No joke this time. So many people are relying on social media to keep them from boredom and allow them to interact with their comrades. But because many of these platforms use algorithms to target and raise certain people into the spotlight, whatever they say can lead to misinformation. Like, there was this one trend where all people had to do was hold their breath for 10 seconds, and that would decide whether or not they had corona. As you may see, this is very dumb, but people may actually believe it. This leads to a counter used to decrease the spread of misinformation. Big platforms have decided to step up their game. If they want to help steer these people lacking knowledge in the right direction, then they'll need to reinforce good sites and credible information. Oh, so that's why every time I wanted to look up a meme on how to get rid of the coronavirus at home, free solutions in 16 minutes or less, 4-step plan, risk-free trials, I got a notification on TikTok to lead me to a credible site. I thought that was a scam. Speaking of Coors Light, Summertime Brew, how about them internets? People have been talking about how the internet crashing is about to become all the rage. Even big companies have been worrying that their sites might not be able to handle all those people trying to binge the first 13 seasons of Riverdale. Companies have even been slowing down their speeds and quality to reduce the amount of bandwidth that's been getting gathered. Tech experts and researchers have agreed that our internet will be fine in the relatively close future, as our internet is flexible and can hold many people. Besides, even if we don't have the best internet, it's definitely not the worst. USA! 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 And besides, not only are these tech giants taking precautions to help prevent misinformation spreading and the total yet inevitable collapse of the entire internet, they're also actively trying to solve the problem. In one of the only forms of slightly acceptable consensual privacy invasion, big companies like Google and Facebook are using the location data from people's phones to track where they are and the risk factor of potentially spread catastrophes. This data has the potential to save many lives, but would come at the risk of providing third-party health companies and or the government with personal and sensitive data, which we would think would be violating our protection agreements. But, oh well. See, so the next time you go to your nearby black market grocery store to buy potatoes, 2% hand sanitizer, and 44 cases of toilet paper, think back on this and remember that some big data company may be tracking you for the good of others. And you agreed to it. It's in your privacy policy. For now. That will be all. Thank you for tuning in with me, the worst Cheshire Sowus. This was not in any way endorsed, sponsored, or promoted by Budweiser, Corona, Coors, or Sprite Candy.
Hello, my name is Jonah, and my podcast is how technology and computer science help stop the coronavirus. Although there are many pros and cons of computer science during the global coronavirus pandemic, the pros are outweighing the cons. My computer assistant will help us today by answering some questions. So, what are the pros of computer science helping to stop the pandemic?
Computer science is benefiting the outside world from the coronavirus today through online newspapers and social media that are able to send items that help you keep notified on symptoms, how to wash your hands, and the progression of the coronavirus during this time of crisis. Pros of computer science and technology for the coronavirus help us look at statistics, data of past viruses, and help look back where it started.
Really. Also, many online resources and AI simulations, articles, and curve graphs that help demonstrate the development of the coronavirus. These simulations, such as interactive maps, help us show where the spreading of the disease is utmost prominent. But since these simulations are just predictions based on mathematical data, most of the time they don't include the death and recovery rate.
Right, Jonah. As the technology of our world starts to increase, it means faster detection from viruses. An example is the outbreak SARS. It was detected in days, while presently it can take up to a few hours for the government to be notified. As I said before, that technology is getting to be more and more intelligent. Many recent cases of robots are aiding to stop this pandemic. The robots' jobs vary from sterilizing streets to taking care of patients with the coronavirus.
Right. As well as the coronavirus spreading, the government is asking help from tech companies such as Google, Amazon, and Apple for technology that can track its spread and stop misinformation. So, my assistant, what other noteworthy job is happening with technology today?
Another noteworthy job of computer science and technology during the coronavirus is being able to find the genome. Before, like I said, with the SARS virus, it took more than a year, but now it takes less than a month to find the virus genome. The coronavirus today is a stepstone for technology and computer science, as it demonstrates if the development of these robots could actually aid and support humans during this time, such as doing the job it is programmed for and not breaking down, especially in much needed time.
Oh, so although the disease is spreading, technology and computer science is making significant progress. So although the disease is spreading, technology and computer science is making significant progress to helping to combat and end this current pandemic. Alright, thanks, assistant.
Hello, and welcome to another podcast from Jason Lee. Today we're going to be talking about the COVID-19 virus, and it's something that really affected everyone's lives around the globe. And today we're going to be talking about how technology can help to spread the awareness of COVID-19 and help cure the disease. So the first thing I want to talk about is that some people have developed virtual humans that can help doctors and nurses respond to the disease. So at the USC Institute for Creative Technologies, computer scientists are developing a virtual reality and simulated human characters, virtual human. So basically what the ICT does is it gives an extensive experience in the development of virtual human and VR applications for humans that are very well suited to help with the coronavirus. So the quote battle buddy virtual human agent can interpret data from variable devices, analyze language responses, and administer psychological assessment questions to respond accordingly based on what happens with the virus. So this could be used to treat sick patients, monitor patients' recovery, or help hospital staff answer calls or patient questions. Another way that we use technology to spread coronavirus safety is to build apps and other things that kids and also adults can use. So for example, Albert Rizzo is developing a VR game to help children avoid contagious scenarios. So they're designing a low-cost coronavirus VR game called the COVID-19 Escape Room, and it's basically an obstacle course where safe behaviors like social distancing, washing hands, and covering a sneeze are things that you will be rewarded for doing in the game. And kids can learn to navigate through the course and learn to do real-world behaviors to avoid getting the coronavirus. Rizzo said that the VR is already in use to help people learn new behaviors, and the simulator has proven to be more effective than books and other sources because we know that kids don't like to read and they like to do more visually and interactive things. Going to treating the coronavirus, many people are using machine learning to find potential COVID-19 drugs. So in the laboratory in Vertebrate School of Engineering, scientists are applying machines to drug discovery for treatment in coronavirus. So in their research, they find drug designed for one purpose and has an unintended benefit. They say that the same method can be applied to the search for a drug that may be used for COVID-19. They're trying to repurpose a drug from fighting a disease to fighting one disease to another disease, because since the coronavirus has appeared in the world before, the scientists are thinking that this method of computer learning could work. They're exploring multiple potential mechanisms, including the drugs best able to attack the coronavirus DNA that can stop the virus from making the proteins it needs to reproduce itself. Another way that technology is helping the coronavirus is there are smartphone apps that can monitor symptoms and track COVID-19's spread. So, a scientist, Peter Kuhn, is working on an app to monitor a person's symptom and location with cross-reference with that information that can use GPS and heat track and other things to track the symptoms and know where the people with the symptom is at. So a good thing about this is that it can find people who have the symptom fast, but this may some people would be uncomfortable because scientists or the government could always know your location, and I know that some people in America don't really like that. And in a modern world like this, computing power is definitely helping the development of a disease cure, coronavirus cure, and it's also helping to spread the awareness of the disease, to hope to convince people to stay home and save lives by sitting on their couch or bed. One thing that I like the most about technology, and I think is very beneficial, is actually video games. Since video games can help you, can keep you entertained at home, I think video games will keep people together by having a social network and not actually interacting with each other at home. And I think that's really good because people need communication, and video games provide entertainment and communication at the same time at home. Thank you for listening to the podcast. This is Jason Lee.
Hello, I will be doing my podcast on the role of computer science and future outbreaks like this COVID-19 we are experiencing now. So, as we know, we've been quarantined for, 3 weeks? And things have been a little rough, but with our advances in computer science, we are able to do our classes online, and we're able to get a bunch of work done and even do a good amount of the learning by ourselves without teacher assistance. And with the internet being as big as it is, there are just millions and millions of resources that are just at our disposal. I don't know what the right word would be. Whatever. But we're at our use. And with the different programs and different websites we can use, we're just able to adapt and learn by ourselves without any need of a classroom. And obviously this isn't perfect. Personally, I'd rather be in a classroom. It's fairly difficult to get work done by myself. There's a lot of temptation for, other activities such as video games or just looking through the internet. But still, we've come a long way. And something like this really wouldn't be nearly as possible, even just 5 to 10 years ago. Which brings me to another point where working from home is super possible with many, many of jobs. This crisis has really more enlightened us on how we're able to do all these different things from home, and it's amazing. There's so many jobs that people thought that you need to be there to do that we're finding out that we can't. I know I don't have any examples, but more of just, this is more of my thought process. But with us, able to be, adapt to what our situation is, and we're able to still prosper. And even though the economy's kind of about to tank, maybe computer science could help out with that as well. With these advancements in the recent years, we are able to just communicate with one another seamlessly, and we're able to just socialize semi-normally with Zoom and everything, but also there's stuff like Discord and Twitch and just the internet in general, like Twitter and all the social media platforms. And being in isolations, we're still able to be just even more connected than we would be if we weren't, because now we're all facing the same problem, and it kind of unites us, through computer science, and we have many news outlets that we can read through, just thanks to the internet of, the free information and net neutrality and all that, which is another podcast from a while ago. But yeah. Also, the computer science could help, definitely help, maybe even predict when the next outbreak will happen, but, more so it will help, with us being more prepared. We are able to predict numbers, and, we get so much information just from our advancements in computer sciences. And we're able to be more vigilant into what's going on, ever just so slightly more because of it. And in the future, with more advancements, we may even be able to stop an even worse one, a worse pandemic, that is. But yeah, that's pretty much all I really have to say on the matter. Thank you for listening.
Computer science is a big part of our lives during this period. With the online learning that schools have turned to, and that our school has also turned to be able to continue education. But computer science is also helping slow down the spread of the coronavirus. It is a major reason that this pandemic is not bigger than it already is. One such way that computer science is helping prevent the spread of the virus is in China. When the virus was not as widespread as it is today, and still only located in China, people at the airports and other means of getting out of China, such as docks that lead to ships, had to check each person with an ear thermometer to detect those who have a higher temperature and may have the virus. But now, since the spread of the virus to other countries and within China, the mainland China, Chinese officials have called upon companies and government scientists to develop new and faster ways of detecting the virus. One such example of a faster way of detecting the virus is installing thermal cameras. In China, thermal cameras are installed in most ways in and out of the country. These thermal cameras check each individual person's temperature and are able to detect those who have an unusually high temperature and who may have a fever, which is one of the symptoms of the coronavirus, and prevent them from getting on an airplane or a ship to some other country or other place to help contain the spread of the virus. The detection of people who have the virus also plays a big role in the use of big data during this pandemic. Using the data collected on people with the virus, authorities can see where the most people are getting the virus and where the spread of the virus is going. Using this data, officials and scientists can predict where areas are going to be hit hard with the virus. Big data can also be used to detect those who are more susceptible to the virus and those who the virus will hit hard. For example, people of a higher age and that have underlying health problems may have worse symptoms and may take the effects worse than someone who is younger and more fit than an older person. Data collected from the virus can also help us prepare for a worse virus in the future. For example, during the SARS outbreak, technology like the technology that we have now did not exist then. And that cost us dearly in terms of life. So I think that new technologies will help us better prepare for future viruses more than what we prepared for this virus. I think that this pandemic has forced us to upgrade and invent new technologies to combat this virus. And I think that this will also help more guide advancements to computer science in the future. Another way that China is using computer science to halt the spread of the virus is through the use of apps, which are extremely popular. These apps that you can download on like your mobile phone allow you to see if you are near or traveling near, such as on a train, near a confirmed patient of coronavirus. Using the intricate system of cameras that China has, they can detect and see who has coronavirus, and this app allows you to see if you are near someone with it. This early warning system allows you to move away from that person and limit your potential exposure to the virus. Other apps allow you to see if you have been in close contact with the person that had coronavirus, so that you may quarantine yourself to help keep the public safe.
The COVID-19 pandemic has exposed the limits of our technology. Facial recognition is thwarted by face masks, and travel blacklists prove unable to handle millions of users. In response, China, like other nations, has implemented many new technology-based security methods. These methods include drones, which tell individuals to put on a mask or go indoors, facial recognition software that measures people's temperatures and identifies them based on body and facial data, checking phone data to see if people have come within close range of a coronavirus patient, and giving police helmets, facial recognition, and thermal cameras so they can identify and catch people with fever. Social media platforms like WeChat have hotlines for people to report others who may be sick, and some cities are offering rewards for informing authorities about sick neighbors. But one of the most controversial measures requires citizens to use software on their smartphones that dictates whether they should be quarantined or allowed into subways, malls, and other public places. The Alipay Health Code, as China's official news media has called the system, was first introduced as a project by a local city government and a sister company of the e-commerce company Alibaba. People sign up for the app through a popular wallet app, Alipay, and are then assigned a color code, green, yellow, or red, that indicates their health status. The Alipay Health Code creators says it uses big data to draw automated conclusions about whether someone is a contagion risk. After users fill in a form on Alipay with personal details, the software generates a QR code. A green code enables the user to move unrestrictedly. A yellow code calls the user to stay home for 7 days or less. And a red code causes a 2-week quarantine. An official webpage says a yellow or red code may be given to someone who has had contact with an infected person, visited a virus hot zone, or reported having symptoms in the sign-up form. The system also draws on government-held data on plane, train, and bus bookings. In some cities, it has become nearly impossible to take public transportation without showing your Alipay code. Certain housing complexes won't let citizens in unless their code is green. And if they don't have an app, getting into many apartments or workplaces still requires giving your name, ID number, temperature, and recent travel history. Alipay Health Code is already in use in 200 cities. Neither the company nor Chinese officials explain in detail how the system classifies people. That has caused fear and bewilderment among those ordered to self-isolate with no idea why, especially because the program is required to get into so many aspects of daily life. Users whose health code is red said on social media they heard nothing from the authorities about when they might expect their codes to change color or why the codes are red. Some users said the app's code seemed to suffer from a bug, for example, changing color from green to yellow when the user merely drove through an affected territory without stopping. Some social media users even said the system encourages a kind of mandatory regional prejudice because it restricts people based on where they're from. The system also received criticism because it does more than decide whether someone poses a contagion risk. As soon as the user grants the software access to personal data, a piece of the program sends the person's location, city name, and an identifying code number to a server, connecting it to law enforcement. While Chinese internet companies often share data with the government, the process is rarely so direct and so mandatory for all facets of daily life. This one case demonstrates how technology can both help and hurt us during pandemic. These new technologies obviously pose a security concern because they are so mandatory, but they may have also aided China's recovery. Although China had one of the highest initial numbers for people infected and dead due to the virus, the number of new infections in China has fallen dramatically. Essentially, people there are getting better faster than they're getting sick, and major Chinese tech firms are also investing heavily in the research for new vaccines, with Alibaba developing algorithms to quickly analyze CT scans for signs of the coronavirus. These technological breakthroughs are obviously beneficial for the general population. Our advanced software can help us identify who is ill and where they are faster than ever. However, once technologies for mass surveillance are created, they cannot be uncreated. Residents worry about how much mass data collection continues after the coronavirus is less of a public health threat. Some experts say the virus has given authorities a use for accelerating the mass collection of personal data to track citizens, just like we saw after the 2008 Olympics held in Beijing or the Shanghai Expo in 2010. Currently, citizens who violate virus prevention and control measures can be subject to 3 years in prison and up to 7 for particularly serious cases. Of course, what constitutes violating virus prevention and control measures can change easily. While there's been no indication, there's a chance these extreme personal data collection measures could be implemented again. At the very least, we now know that this technology exists, was implemented at a national scale, and can return. We can't prevent technology from impacting how we deal with world events, and it would be unwise not to benefit from the many positive ways we can use facial recognition or QR codes to maintain safety. In the end, the choice is between maintaining our privacy or maintaining our health. Nations like South Korea and Japan have made remarkable progress in slowing down the growth of COVID-19. But in nations with a much greater population, such as China's over 1 billion inhabitants, or even America, it may be much more difficult to enforce the kind of mass testing policies that worked so well for South Korea. Using drones, apps, and harsh restrictions may be the only way. The most important thing is to keep our citizens alive and healthy, whatever costs that may ensure.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Shut Up and Listen. With the sudden closure of every school in the area, teachers and staff are desperately trying to find ways to keep in close contact with their students. They use email, school websites, and video chats to make sure their pupils are getting the information they require to continue their education. Video conference calls keep the students engaged and communication between students and teachers flowing, much like in the actual classroom. Many video chatting programs offer a mute and hidden video option as well. This allows the students to multitask while still being in the class. During such a hectic time, these features give students privacy and freedom inside the classroom. One popular platform is FaceTime. FaceTime is used more for social reasons between friends and family, and less so between teachers and students. FaceTime allows you to speak with up to 32 other Apple users. Although many students, if they have an Apple product, tend to only have the phone, which can get crowded with 32 other faces on the screen. In addition, Apple chats and video calls use personal information to contact each other, like phone numbers, which can be uncomfortable for teachers to give to their students. For these reasons, FaceTime is not recommended for learning purposes, despite its popularity outside of the classroom. Another platform being used quite a lot by schools worldwide is Zoom. Zoom offers an unlimited time free trial, allowing you to speak with as many people as you desire. Despite the infinite number of callers, Zoom only shows you 49 other people on their gallery view, with a total of 50 including you. With their free version, Zoom only allows video meetings between more than 2 people to last for 40 minutes. But if it's just 2 individuals speaking, it can go on for as long as you wish. However, if the account that begins the call has the paid version, the meeting may last as long as possible. Zoom offers screen sharing, customizable backgrounds, and a calendar for your scheduled meetings, helping you keep track of when and where you have to be. Zoom is one of the best platforms for online classes. Skype is one of the most well-known video calling platforms along with FaceTime. Skype is used mostly among Android users and businesses. Skype is a free video and messaging platform that allows you to call 50 people at a time for as long as you wish. With its paid version, Skype also offers calls to landlines and SMS messaging. Skype offers background blur, screen sharing, and live subtitles, making it perfect for college classes. Skype has the most features available of the 3 platforms mentioned and is the best option for businesses and schools. Video calling platforms have been around for decades and will continue to help our society thrive. In the future, should we encounter another pandemic or a more permanent change in our lives, these sort of platforms can help and will help our economy stabilize and eventually grow. Although you cannot clean a bathroom through a video conference call, programs like Skype and Zoom will allow business transactions and college lectures to happen around the world.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Information Nation podcast. My name is Evan Greenstein, and today we are going to be talking about the coronavirus, and more specifically, how computer science is affecting the coronavirus. So, starting things out, last Sunday, IBM announced an initiative to increase access to high-performance supercomputers to help research and find vaccines and treatments for the coronavirus, COVID-19. And to do this, IBM partnered with the White House, and more specifically the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, as well as the Department of Energy, to create what is known as the COVID-19 High Performance Computing Consortium. And this, which IBM just started recently, is being used to harness these powerful high-performance supercomputers to increase the speed and capacity of coronavirus-related research. And this system, the consortium, will harness 16 supercomputing systems from IBM, national laboratories, several universities like MIT, for example, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and others. And the computing power of these supercomputers will be provided to researchers via remote access, and it will be provided to researchers whose projects have been approved by the consortium's leadership board, which will be comprised of tech industry leaders and White House and Energy Department officials. And the group plans to begin accepting research proposals through a portal that will go live this Sunday evening. And this is actually, I think it's a good thing, this whole news, because these supercomputers can find out, can do models and experiments related to the coronavirus much easier and much faster. For example, there was recently a test run of sorts at the University of Tennessee using IBM's Summit supercomputer at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, which was able to screen 8,000 compounds and identify 77 of those compounds that are most likely to bind to the main spike protein in the coronavirus, rendering it incapable of attaching to host cells in the human body. So out of 8,000 compounds, like that 8,000 were screened, only 77 came up as possible for vaccines, which is really good considering that this was done in not a lot of time at all. Because traditional methods of doing these experiments, like just using a pen and paper or something like that, would have taken years to do this same experiment. And even like more traditional computers, not supercomputers, but like just your average computers, would have still taken quite a bit, considering the fact that computers, they function independently, they do their calculations independently, while these high-performance supercomputers work together and they pass their calculations between one another to process information more quickly. So these supercomputers are much better at doing these kinds of experiments and research in areas like epidemiology and molecular modeling than more traditional computers, because the systems mirror the interconnectivity that exists in nature. So this is all really good news, right? I mean, we can find out, we can do research and do models and experiments much faster now with these supercomputers, and we can hopefully find a cure quickly before, or at least a vaccine quickly before the next coronavirus outbreak, if it is seasonally. And this is all good, but the problem, in my opinion, is the fact that IBM and like these companies are dishing out these supercomputers. They're dishing out these systems, and that isn't necessarily a bad thing. It could be good, considering that researchers that don't have as much resources or funding will be able to possibly get their research done, and possibly have better research output, considering they will be able to use these supercomputers. But what concerns me is how IBM will dish out these supercomputers. Will they dish it out just based on the research projects that will have the most impact overall? Because if so, wouldn't that cut out research operations in smaller areas, in smaller parts of the world where the research might only affect that part of the world? They might not get the research they need because they're not as big of a project. That's just my concern, and we don't really know how this will all play out. Maybe everyone will get the research, but there's only some supercomputers. There's only a finite amount of supercomputers that can be given out. So they have to make some decisions. So it concerns me how they will make those decisions. What decisions will they make? Will they be influenced by politics and different countries that might not be friends with the U.S. or I don't really know. And also another thing though, a good thing though, is that the people behind this whole project, this consortium, are big corporations like IBM, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and high-profile universities and national laboratories and the government, the U.S. government, meaning they probably won't have a shortage of funding, which is good, because then the results might be better, because they might be able to do more experiments, and that would be good. So overall, though, I think that this news of the consortium of IBM and the White House and these big corporations helping other smaller researchers combat the coronavirus and find vaccines and cures and maybe a cure, overall, I think it's actually very good, and I think this could be a very good thing for the world right now. I think it could possibly slow down the coronavirus and make it not as bad. Well, at least if it doesn't make it as bad this coronavirus season, maybe if it's seasonally, it'll make the next season not as bad. Sort of like the flu, and now we have a flu vaccine. But anyways, thank you for tuning in to the Information Nation podcast. My name is Evan Greenstein, and thank you for watching. Stay awesome.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Elliot, and today I'm going to be talking about the current role and the future role of technology and computer science in world events like this pandemic that we're going through with coronavirus and everything. So I want to start things off with this South Korean biotech company that I read about that used an AI-based big data system that allowed them to come up with a testing kit for the virus in mere 3 weeks. These testing kits are made up of several vials of chemical solutions, which were then mixed with samples from patients, and then they would then react if specific genes were present. And without the AI developing the test, this would have likely taken 2 or 3 months to develop, using traditional methods, according to the company's chief executive and founder. So AI in this case was able to produce something much faster than humans could have, and this really benefited the South Korean population because they were able to get these testing kits out to as many people as possible, and people were more educated about or if they had the virus or not, and were able to determine if they needed to go to the hospital or how to avoid spreading the virus to other people. Again, computer science was used to help develop accurate numbers and analytics, and social media companies are also getting more involved to try and stop the spread of misinformation and instead direct people to official and reliable sources like the Center for Disease Control, so people aren't getting this misled and possibly catfished by people trying to take advantage of the situation, making sure that people understand the situation and it's not being blown out of proportion. It's really important. People need to know what's going on. They need to know the news. They need to know the statistics, the analytics. How many people have it? Where is it? All of that's really important. And then these numbers have also, along with several other methods, have also been used to track the virus and see where it might spread to next and how to minimize the effect it might have on other areas that haven't been hit by it yet. So I know that some of these some tracking data has been used to about people's movement to understand where the next major outbreak might be, as well as high-resolution population density maps, again used for the same purpose to try to prevent the next major outbreak of the disease and to take the necessary precautions to make sure that a major outbreak doesn't happen. So computer science has been really helpful. It's allowed for people to get accurate information and statistics, learn if they're in an area where people have it, and whether or not they need to take certain precautions to make sure that their families are safe, and also to develop these testing kits, of course, that are allowing people to be more educated on whether or not they have the virus or not, and allowing people to know that they have it and not spread it, hopefully, and to go see a doctor. So it's been really useful in this case. I think the only concern that I would have is about privacy. I think with technology being introduced everywhere in our homes, with Alexa, etc., privacy is going to be a real concern as we move forward. Technology is the path that we're all moving towards, and computer science is where everything is headed. AI already proving that it can be significantly faster than several human minds working together. AI is going to be really beneficial, or could be really beneficial to society if used in the correct ways. And I think precautions do need to be taken to make sure that it's use in ways to help people and not to hurt people. It can be really, really useful in the future if we have similar pandemics, to help develop cures, to help locate, the next outbreak. Um, it's able to do things much faster than humans can do. It can comprehend and go through much and interpret much more data than humans can do as well. So machines and technology are extremely, extremely useful for pandemics like this. My other concern about technology as we move forward, in the future pandemics, is that not everyone might have access, to the newest technology. And I know, like, maybe, not everyone has to have the newest iPhone, but in the future, I really hope that technology isn't locked behind a paywall and that everyone has access to it if they need it. Technology should be a basic human right. I think no one should be excluded, or not allowed to have like the newest technologies because they can't pay for it. I think that's ridiculous. I think it should be a basic human right, especially to have at least the internet, but also machines that, are up to date, work, and allow people to live better lives. It doesn't make sense to me that people should have or be put at a disadvantage because they can't afford the newest technology. So making technology affordable and making sure that everyone has access to technology, the internet, and accurate information is going to be really important as we move forward, and go through similar events like we're going through right now. So, this has been most of my opinions on computer science and just my concerns as we move forward into the future, and how it's computer science and technology is going to be utilized. So thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Hi, my name is Elise Summerhog, and this is my podcast about technology versus the coronavirus. Scientists are scrambling to prevent the spread of the SARS-CoV-2, also known as the coronavirus. In order for scientists to prevent the spread of the disease, they need to know how many people a single person infects after being infected. The scientific term for this is R-naught. Luckily, scientists are using programs to run simulations to figure out how contagious COVID-19 actually is. These simulations have been going on for years in fear of another pandemic similar to the one in 1918, the Spanish flu. The Spanish flu infected a quarter of the world's population and killed over 50 million people. In order to fully understand what is happening, let me give you a brief overview of what an R-naught is. The R-naught of a disease is a mathematical calculation on how contagious the disease is. It answers the question, how many other people are infected by one person? If the R-naught is 2, then each time the number of infected multiplies by 2. So 1, and then 2, and then 4, and then 8, etc. For the R-naught to be needed, there are 3 conditions. 1, no vaccine has been created to fight against the disease. 2, the disease hasn't been present in the world before. And 3, there has been no other way to prevent the spread. There are multiple factors that go into calculating the R-naught as well. The first is the amount of time a person has the ability to infect others. This is tricky because it varies from person to person and by age. Older people have less time to infect others, while younger people have a longer time. The second is the average amount of people a person comes in contact with. Once again, it varies upon how social each person is, and the third is how exactly the disease transmits. Common transmission types are by bodily fluids, uncooked food, and contact. All of these factors come into play when calculating different diseases. For example, the R-naught for measles is 18, and the R-naught for Ebola is only 2. Anyways, the R-naught of COVID-19 is between 1.5 and 3.5. With this information, simulations are able to be made to model the possible number of people going to be infected and the possible number of deaths. A company called the Institute for Disease Modeling, IDM, creates simulations for pandemic events. In 2018, Bill Gates collaborated with IDM to create a simulation modeling a global flu pandemic and how many deaths it would cause over 6 months. Although the flu is a quite common disease, they set up simulations as if it was totally new. The end total of deaths was 32,918,534 people. If IDM is able to create a simulation for COVID-19, it would help scientists, government officials, and the public prevent the spread and keep the public informed of the dangers the disease could inflict. Another simulation was done last year to test America's capability of handling a pandemic. Trump's Department of Health and Human Services has been testing multiple scenarios from June to August of last year. The results were not comforting as they figured out if something like a pandemic were to happen, the government would be underfunded and unable to handle it in a timely manner. The simulation expected 110 million to be infected, 7.7 million hospitalized, and 586,000 dead. The numbers for the coronavirus have not reached these, but what will happen if they do? Many companies are coming together to help fight the coronavirus. For example, Google's DeepMind has been able to make a guess for the structure of a number of the proteins that make up the coronavirus. They created an AI called AlphaFold, which is similar to the AI they created that beat multiple professionals in both the game chess and Go. AlphaFold is able to map the folding structure of proteins. In order to help fight against the disease, they have been releasing their information to organizations to help find a vaccine. I hope this information has been educational and that you enjoyed my podcast.
Hi, Mr. J. Hope you're doing well. Guess I should just step into it. AI is being used for good. It's being used to gather data and research on the coronavirus, and in combination with our knowledge of viral structures, it's trying to produce helpful vaccines in the hopes of curing or treating the coronavirus. With the help of AI, we can make the once laborious and time-consuming task of determining the structure of the virus proteins and do a slightly less time-consuming and less laborious one. The AI can basically predict the protein structures based on the amino acid sequences and other genetic components of the proteins. There are many different AIs hard at work on trying to crack the code behind the coronavirus, and they're all also kind of working on different parts of it, kind of like a team. I mean, a lot of them are overlapping and doing the same thing, but they're all trying to find different parts of it as well. For example, finding the structure of the proteins is really the name of the game, but the virus is made up of a lot of them, so this approach really makes sense. A popular one to study is the spike protein because it's the way that the virus enters our cells to make copies of itself. So if we can figure out how to repel or destroy that or stop that, then we can kind of kill, in theory, the coronavirus. Computer science is also a vital component of crucial research right now. It's allowing us to take approaches that were impossible in earlier cases of outbreaks in the world in order to find the safest and most efficient cure faster. It's also, the way that we're all communicating right now. I mean, without innovations in computer science, services such as Zoom or Gmail, for example, the whole world is working at home from these things, based on these things. And we live in a time where we can, just phone up a friend or a group of friends and work together on an assignment, or just, hang out and let off steam during these times of panic. Services like Amazon or digital retailers like Apple are able to continue to deliver products to people. And streaming service are kind of king right now because they are the most straightforward way of, being entertained. You just subscribe to Netflix or something, and boom, you got that whole library of things to just kind of waste time on. And so that convenience is really keeping the world sane right now. Video games are seeing a huge uproar in demand because screens, in general, are the way that we lean for entertainment. Screen time is going way up because we can't really go outside a ton. It's keeping us all connected, which is one of the things that we really need right now in this time of crisis. While most people prefer to meet and work in person, doing it remotely does have its perks, in my opinion. For example, some services allow people to be even more connected with their unique arsenal of tools. For example, Zoom has a speaker option, which basically makes it so whoever's speaking is the one who is showcased to the rest of the participants. For me, this really helps because I have a hard time in class keeping up with who's talking or what the assignment is. So when it's kind of streamlined like this, it really makes the whole thing a lot more smooth for me. The whole classroom experience a lot more smooth for me. However, for some, it's easier to be there in person and to be able to, ask questions physically, about their work or about their assignment. So with the shift to doing everything online, there is also this ability to do kind of whatever we want in kind of whatever order we want to do it in. That freedom is awesome. But for some, it's kind of horrible because what we lose is a basic structure in our day. Now, not having a structure, for some, they love it because they can kind of do whatever they want in whatever order they want, and they can do that. For others, it really depends. I mean, some people can't really form a structure every day because every day it's a completely different set of events, set of assignments. Whereas before it was a guaranteed kind of series of things, and you know what to expect, and it kept you on track. Here, you're relying on yourself to do it. The presence of computer science in our everyday lives right now is overwhelming. I mean, we're on it almost 24/7. So I think we need to be able to control how much time we spend on the screens and how much time we spend exercising or with one another to retain the vital connections that make up life.
Hi, this is Avi, and this is another installment of the Flash Talk podcast. We're living in a world in which a global pandemic, the coronavirus, has crippled economies and fundamentally changed the way people around the globe live their lives. Technology has had and will continue to have a large role in mitigating the disaster during our current period and after the coronavirus has been, I suppose, solved. Right now, we're seeing technology play an unprecedented role. Never before in the history of the world has there been such a reliance on technology and especially on digital technologies. In effect, right now, all communication is being done through technology, with of course a few exceptions. All information is received and given through technology. And that's of course because right now it's literally dangerous for people to come even within 6 feet of each other. So we're really relying on technology more than ever. And to be honest, our society was already moving away from in-person interaction and more towards, face to face, not face to face, but on computer screen. That's why the rise that we saw of Zoom and other video conferencing apps. Right now, we're seeing startups popping up like never before. And that's not surprising, to be honest. As immoral as it may sound, disaster is a great economic opportunity for entrepreneurs. I've heard of a self reporting app tracking COVID-19 symptoms in the UK, which has seen, I think, 750,000 downloads in just 24 hours. And I guess that's kind of the ultimate irony. In this information age, which is information is seemingly available everywhere, we still struggle for information, except that this time it's not that there's not enough information, it's not that there's no access to information, it's that it's just too much. And as our lovely president likes to say, there's a lot of fake news out there and a lot of misleading media. Of course, aside from apps made in the private sector, governments around the world are also trying quite hard to get people to stay inside and figure out who has the virus. Multiple Asian governments have used smartphone apps to track data of users who have tested positive for COVID 19. In South Korea, a compulsory app enforces self isolation for those ordered to maintain it. Taiwan and Singapore are also using smartphone apps to enforce quarantines via electric fences that alert authorities when someone moves out of quarantine. So, no, they're not actually being shocked. Rather, it's, I suppose, a signal that's being sent to authorities that alerts them, well, this person is moving out of quarantine. They are now a risk to the population. You need to act on the situation quickly. Of course, in the U.S., the idea of, this idea of the government becoming even more intrusive into our daily lives via tracking our location or enforcing compulsory apps, especially on a large scale, would probably meet some pushback. And I suppose rightfully so, especially because, our Constitution and our various amendments that have given Americans large amounts of privacy and protections, and just in general, how, because of this Constitution that we have, how protective Americans are of our security. However, in California, due to Gavin Newsom's stay at home order and the difficulty the police have had in enforcing that in this extremely large state filled with extremely urban and very rural areas at the same time, many police departments are having a hard time enforcing this order. So, what a lot of police departments have started doing is enlisting drones to enforce lockdown measures. In essence, what this thing would do is these drones would carry cameras and loudspeakers that would travel around cities, telling people in crowds to go home. Now, I feel like this is either too little or too much, because if there's no actual police force there, these people who are already denying the science and already coming out in crowds aren't exactly going to listen to a flying robot telling them to go back. I feel like these people are going to need actual police enforcement. But then again, if the police are there, then that's kind of contradictory to the whole message of going out. So it's all very confusing. But personally, even this idea of cameras coming in and recording people and telling them to go home is still kind of concerning, because it could create a big brother kind of situation, not just now during this pandemic, but even after, which I'm sure that not many people want. In light of that, let's talk about life after the pandemic. Nobody knows for sure, of course, because everything's up in the air and we don't know how long this thing is going to last. We don't know the death rates. We don't know fully about the virus. We don't know if it's seasonal. It's very, very, very sparse information about it, and we don't really know much. However, some people have some predictions about what's life is going to be like after the pandemic. An investment banking company called Morgan Stanley has some ideas. They say that e-commerce, online ad giants such as Google, and online gaming providers will likely bounce back. And that's of course because they're already ingrained in this technological world. However, industries in which that require human contact, and they were already struggling before the pandemic, such as the entirety of the hospitality industry, including things like restaurants and travel, along with small companies, will likely suffer. And so that's all I have today, folks. Thanks for listening.
AI has played a role in developing our lifestyles. AI can also be helpful and play a huge role in world events. Currently, the world is going through a pandemic. The virus that is causing this pandemic is COVID-19, or the coronavirus. The coronavirus has spread rapidly throughout countries and caused a global scare. How is AI playing a role? Since computer science has proven to get things done easier and faster, the White House has announced that they were going to work with tech companies to use AI to research the coronavirus and try to find a possible treatment. Researchers hope to use AI algorithms to find any trends that show possible factors as to why only some patients are affected worse than others. Also, since the virus is spreading on such a large scale and there's so much research being done, researchers have a lot of information that needs to be sorted through.
AI can be used to sort through this information by searching for patterns and referencing documents with other documents. From data from other countries and patterns from other viruses, AI is able to identify these patterns and use them to analyze how, if, or when the virus will spread, reach its peak, and slowly die down. AI is also going a step further from analyzing how the virus spreads to preventing the virus from spreading. An example of how AI is being used to stop the spread of the virus comes from a Chinese tech company called Baidu. This company has developed an AI system that can detect people's temperatures. How? The system uses an infrared sensor system that is able to monitor people's temperatures from a distance. The other positive about this system is that it can be used in large crowds without disrupting the flow of the foot traffic. It can also monitor up to 200 people in 1 minute. This particular AI system is very useful since one of the known symptoms of the virus is a fever. Another way that AI is being used to prevent the spread is by helping with the development of treatments. AI is being used to develop molecules that limit the virus's ability to replicate in cells, to help further the knowledge of how the virus functions, and to develop a vaccine. All of this shows how AI is working to help end the spread of the virus. But how is AI playing a role in the people's crisis now? With a disease that spreads through contact, human interaction is limited. People are starting to stock up on food, and grocery shelves are ending up empty. AI, like the robots that deliver takeout, can possibly be used to transport essentials that are needed for those who don't want to chance exposing themselves to the virus or don't get to the store before the big rush. This can be especially useful with the elderly who have a higher risk of dying from the virus and have a harder time getting around. What about large areas that need to be cleaned? As shown to us in class, there's an AI robot in China for the job. This robot goes around disinfecting areas where the coronavirus may have come into contact with. This is helpful because with the robot, we get rid of the risk of contaminating a human. Also, the robot is able to cover more of a mass area while controlling the amount of disinfectant used so as to reduce the use of unnecessary disinfectant. This robot is not only helping with decreasing the chance of spreading the coronavirus that could be transmitted through contaminated surfaces, but also with public hygiene in general. These robots actually came from farmers who use agricultural drones and robots for their plants. How does this robot work? The AI technology in the robot collects inputs from the camera on it. These cameras recognize traffic lights, walk signals, and stop signs. The robot also uses GPS and sensors. These sensors help to identify the speed of people walking in the area around the robot so as to avoid any collisions with pedestrians. Even though I haven't found evidence of a robot that can deliver groceries rather than takeout to houses, I'm sure that with the technology in the takeout robot, technologists could develop an AI robot to do the job. However, with the pandemic on everyone's mind and resources like Amazon available, I'm not sure researchers are looking to develop a robot to deliver food, but rather one that will end the crisis altogether. As you can see, AI has played many roles in this current world event with helping sort and track data, analyzing and interpreting trends, identifying those who may be sick from a distance, developing a treatment, cleaning large areas, and transporting resources. Without AI, I'm not sure if all that we know about the virus would be possible, or if the spread of the virus would be worse. But what I do know is that it has played a huge role in helping to stop this pandemic. Thank you.